Today, we look at one of the most important tasks of adolescence, the process of self-discovery, when teenagers ask themselves, "Who am I?" My name is John Gehrig, and in this video, we're going to look at an important topic, adolescence and identity. If you would like to download the notes for this video, go to the Youth Ministry 2.2 link in the video description. Much of this information is from Laurence Steinberg's textbook on adolescence. Information about this book is also included below. What is identity? It is the answer to the questions, who am I, and who I want to become. It is what makes me different from others. For some adolescents, the search for identity is an acute crisis, while for others, it is a gradual discovery. A person cannot realize 100% of themselves 100% of the time. Although self-understanding can grow, there will be parts of the self that can never be fully understood. To illustrate this idea, two scientists have developed what is known as the Johari window. In this framework, the personality is divided into 4 areas. The first area is the part of myself that I know and everyone else knows. It's an open area. Everyone can see it. The second area, the hidden zone, is the part of myself that is known to me, but I hide from others. Depending on personality, this area can be large or small. The third part is the area of my personality that others see clearly, but I don't. For example, a proud or conceited person often doesn't see himself the way others do. This is the blind spot. And the fourth zone is the part of me that neither I nor anyone else knows about except for God. This is the unknown zone. Thanks to new cognitive abilities, teens are in the process of understanding more and more of their identity. Some scholars consider this to be the main task of adolescence. How does a person see himself in different stages of life? A 4-year-old child evaluates himself by what he has and what he likes to do. He might say, "I have a toy truck and I could run fast." A 10-year-old would see himself as a more complex person, maybe include some emotional traits. For the first time in his or her life, adolescents become aware of changes in personality and how others perceive them. The physical changes that occur in adolescence, the development of abstract thinking, and changing roles in the family and with peers lead to the question, who am I and what do I want out of life? People evaluate themselves in different ways. One of them is sense of identity. This is more of an objective analysis of who you are, where you came from, and where you're going. The second is self-conceptions, when a person makes objective judgments about their good or bad traits. The third assessment is most subjective. It is self-esteem, reflecting positive or negative attitudes towards oneself. A person's level of self-esteem can be the result of feedback from significant others, such as teachers and parents, who have either affirmed or denied their worth. A person's personality is quite complex. Adolescents realize that personality manifests itself differently in different situations. For example, they may notice that they are gloomy with family and cheerful with friends, and wonder which is real. Adolescents are also sorting out whose evaluation should matter most to them, their own, their parents, or their friends. In middle adolescence, teens are torn by the contradictions they see in themselves. But by late adolescence, many are able to reconcile these contradictions. Some figure out there are advantages to a multifaceted personality and do better at dealing with their weaknesses. They realize that they will never achieve perfection and are less prone to depression. Kids with the ability to accept their multifaceted selves are better at distinguishing between the real self, the ideal self, and the fearful self. The real self is who a teenager really is. The ideal self is who they want to be, realizing they are capable of more. Interestingly, juvenile delinquents usually don't have an ideal self. They can't visualize themselves as better than they are. The fearful self is who the teen is afraid of becoming. He may think, I don't want to become a tyrant like my father. Adolescents who believe his or her true identity is deficit, likely to be rejected, or just want to experiment with a different role may develop a false self, putting on a mask. Adolescents know their false self from their true self. The false self manifests itself among classmates, with the opposite sex, and even with parents, but not with truly close friends. In our student ministry, some kids may put on a false self, acting that they are a Christian only because that is what is expected. If adolescents lack emotional support from parents and friends and low self-esteem, there is a greater likelihood of a false self. Self-esteem is a critical part of a person's identity. Jesus says that we should love others as we love ourselves. We may think teenagers tend to love themselves, but one study showed that by the end of high school, only 10% of kids have a positive self-esteem. Why is this? Dr. James Dobson said that one of the reasons teenagers think poorly of themselves is because of the way adults correct them. Adults may think that ridicule and shame are good for shaping the will, but they are not. They hurt the spirit, and the spirit is fragile. If you yell at a teen, call him names, compare him to others, he hears that he is worthless. He is not motivated to obedience. His assumption is, well, if that's what my mom or teacher thinks of me, that must be right. Dobson suggests that giving appropriate consequences for willful disobedience is more effective than shaming and anger. He compares the will to steel, and it takes consequences to bend it. When our children were young, we had a box with cards in it. On each card was a task, such as vacuuming the carpets, dusting, sorting markers and colored pencils, or taking out the garbage. All the tasks were unpleasant for them, but they benefited the family. If they broke a rule, the consequence was that they had to take a card and do the task. If they refused, they got 3 cards. It never went any further. This type of punishment worked directly on the child's will without yelling or anger. In early adolescence, 12 to 14 years old, self-esteem seems to fluctuate more erratically, but by 14 years old, it is more stable. The first type of self-esteem is called barometric self-esteem because it fluctuates within the circumstances. But there is a deeper self-esteem, one that is unchangeable and stable. Does a person consider himself generally worthy? Self-esteem as a whole is the best indicator of a teenager's well-being, but barometric self-esteem can reveal problems. If a person receives conflicting evaluations from parents and friends, self-esteem begins to rise or fall depending on the day's events or who he is with. This fluctuating self-esteem may be due to the fact that the teenager simply does not understand what people think of him or her. There is also a view that self-esteem should not be valued as a whole, but rather in specific areas of life. Adolescent self-esteem is often most influenced by their appearance and relationships with peers. Academics, sports, and morals have less influence. It has also been noted that girls' self-esteem is more vulnerable than boys. Girls are more likely to talk negatively about themselves and do not feel confident or that others want to be with them. Girls are more concerned about their appearance and acceptance by their peers. Socioeconomic status can also affect adolescents' self-esteem. What does this whole identity quest mean for us as student leaders? First of all, when we emphasize the strengths of our teens rather than their weaknesses, we can help teens develop and protect their self-esteem. We can help discouraged teens find an area in which they can excel. When our kids were growing up, my wife taught them to play piano and cook, and I taught them to play volleyball. Thanks to their musical foundation, they all learned to play other instruments. They all like to cook. They don't often play volleyball, but they can join in when there's an opportunity. We chose those activities because that's where our skills lie. What are your abilities, and how could you help a teen develop a new area of interest or skill? God has given all of our kids interests, talents, and unique personalities, and we want to help them discover who God created them to be. Each one is deeply loved, forgiven, and accepted in Christ. Even if they never become great athletes, musicians, or chefs, knowing they are children of their true Father, the King, makes them special. So, as we wrap up this session on our teens' emerging sense of self, remember, every person's identity has an open zone seen by everyone, a hidden zone seen only by himself, blind spots, areas that only others see, and unknown zones that only God sees. Periods of barometric self-esteem, when feelings fluctuate depending on circumstances, may be hard for teens to reconcile. The adolescent may present his real self, who he really is, or a false self, who he pretends to be, to try to please others. We can help our kids improve their self-esteem by emphasizing their strengths, helping them develop new skills, and discovering with them who they are in Christ, beloved, treasured children of the King. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If it was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to check out the Youth Ministry 22 website for many free student ministry materials. May God bless you. See you soon.